You are watching Nimasa This Week, the authorized voice for the Nigerian maritime sector. My name is Iresiola Doyle and you are welcome. Now, being the apex regulatory body in marine affairs, Nimasa has an abiding duty to constantly engage and at regular intervals provide stakeholders with information on policies and regulations. Recently, the agency set up a forum with oil and gas companies on the new marine environment management regulations. We're starting this week's edition with a report on that.
Thursday, the 28th of March, witnessed a very crucial meeting of the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency Nimasa with oil companies operating in Nigerian waters as well as sister government agencies involved with oil and gas like the Department of Petroleum Resources. The meeting dwelt on the implementation of the Marine Environment Regulations of 2012. In a welcome address by the Director General of the agency, who was ably represented by Barrister Nwabueze Callistus Obi, the Executive Director, Maritime Labour and Cabotage Services, the DG reinforced the federal government's commitment to ensure the protection of the marine environment and its resources, and has done this by ratifying the MARPOL Convention, which is a major instrument of the International Maritime Organization IMO on the prevention of pollution of the marine environment. He informed the gathering that the convention has since been domesticated into Nigerian law in 2012 through the Gazette of the Marine Environment Management Regulations, among which include the Sea Protection Levy and the Merchant Shipping Ship-Generated Marine Waste Reception Facilities Regulations. In the opening remarks of the Executive Director, Maritime Safety and Shipping Development of the agency, Captain Ezekiel Bala Agaba, he underscored the reasons why Nigeria, as a signatory to the MARPOL Convention, must be committed to ensuring cleaner oceans as well as preserving local maritime resources. He took time to let the oil companies represented at the meeting to know that the regulations made provisions for installations that produce, process, store, or transfer oil and installations used or constructed for the purpose of exploring oil, pipelines in use or otherwise, and vessels operating offshore. He also spoke about the agency's recognition of the need to create awareness and sensitize oil companies to ensure effective implementation and compliance of the regulations. Two presentations were then made to acquaint the stakeholders present of the new regulations. The first was by Mrs. Juliana Gunwa, the Director of Marine Environment Management at Nimasa. The thrust of her presentation dwelt on the tariff structure of the Sea Protection Levy and other related issues.
So from 101 to 1,000 gross tonnage, we have the levy is $0.1. From 100 to 10,000, 0.15 per gross tonnage. 1,000 to 100,000, $0.2 per gross tonnage. US. From 100,000 and above, 0.3 GT. This table also applies to foreign oil tankers that do not call at ports. Every loading or discharging operation is classified as a call. FSUs, leading receiving barrels, oil rigs, and pipelines. The rate payable per annum for offshore installations, the rates are paid once in a year and in Naira as well. The rate payable per annum for an offshore oil installation is 15 million Naira per installation per annum. This is payable on the first day of April in each year by the owner. All oil wells for the exploration of oil attract a service fee of 10 million Naira only. Penalties for non-compliance. Detention of ships. Any ship in default of payment of the SPL may be detained by the agency. at any port or jetty until the levy is paid. On the recovery of levy, SPL payable will be recovered in court by bringing legal action against the ship, its owner or master.
The second paper was presented by Barrister Akabogu, who participated in drafting the regulations as a consultant with Nimasa. His paper dwelt largely on the legal basis for the regulations and the international nature of the convention.
It's important to locate whatever subject we're discussing today within the context of the broader global imperatives to ensure that our marine environment is clean and it's safe for all of us to operate in. And that is why Nigeria is subject to these set obligations which have been outlined. So the thematic underpinning for marine environmental management essentially is sustainable management of the marine environment for the purpose of facilitating continuous, safe and clean shipping. And that is why we are familiar with the IMO slogan of safer shipping and cleaner oceans. Because the IMO came in as an interventionist agency at a time when the management of the marine environment and indeed the security of the marine environment was a very, very high concern in the minds of the shipping industry.
Shortly after the two presentations, the forum went into a question and answer session in which the invited stakeholders freely expressed themselves and sought further clarifications on the issues raised in the presentations. Some of the participants from oil companies were of the opinion that the levies were just another source of revenue generation by the government, a notion which Captain Bala Agaba addressed very emphatically.
This is not a revenue generating process. This is an IMO stewarded process, and we are not trying to generate money here. We are just trying to offer services, and services cost money. The levies are going to help us to provide the vessels, the crew, and the management team that is going to carry out these services. It's not a revenue generating exercise.
Other participants spoke about not being given adequate notice of the implementation of the regulations, and Mrs. Juliana Gunwa was on hand to clarify issues for them.
These regulations came into being in June, and then we started effective implementation. But before we started the effective implementation of the provisions of the gazettes, we had a stakeholders meeting, which was held somewhere in one of the, I think Best Western, in Victoria Island in September. And all relevant stakeholders, including IOCs, they were all invited and they were there, where we introduced the different regulations, not just the two, not just the sea protection and the waste management regulations, the 12 regulations, including the 13, which is the inland water regulation. They were all introduced to them, and we took several comments and informed them that it is going to come into force. So for them to come to tell us that they are hearing for the first time, it's not real.
The Deputy Chief Legal Officer, Mr. Kingston Chikwendo of the Department of Petroleum Resources, spoke glowingly about the level of synergy that exists between the DPR and Nimasa.
You can see we are together here at this stakeholder workshop, trying to deliberate on the new policy just introduced there. And then apart from this, over the years, the DPR have always worked in a collaborative manner like this with Nimasa in trying to solve some of the issues that arise as a result of oil operations in the marine environment.
A view which was corroborated by Barrister Callistus Obi, who also went on to call for greater cooperation between related government agencies.
You must have a synergy between your agency and other agencies who do things that are also related one way or the other to your core mandate. So in that respect, I would say the synergy is encouraging, but it could be better. So we're looking forward to a situation where if there are gaps, we'll close it up so as to enhance operations and regulations. So for now, we're happy with the way things are, but we're also asking for an improved situation, because as we go forward, there are particularly, you can see what we're talking about here. It has to do with the safe and cleaner waters. So Nimasa alone cannot do it excellently well if we don't get cooperation from other agencies.
At the end of the day, we sought the views of Barrister Akabogu on his perception of how the oil companies and other stakeholders have received the new regulations.
I'd say there's some measure of hope in the industry by virtue of these regulations. Some people, many people I've interacted with have commended the regulations and acknowledged that the regulations are very important for the country at this time. Of course, I also acknowledge that because some of the regulations involve financial obligations on the part of the companies, there's that constraint on some of them, on some of their parts to be a bit wary, and it's understandable, you know. But one of the things I note interestingly, particularly with this administration of Nimasa, is that they have been very, very proactive when it comes to putting structures in place to respond to some matters which are related to their mandates.
Now, oil theft is a serious issue that grabs the attention of Nimasa. Recently, the agency, in conjunction with other security agencies, interjected a vessel engaged in oil theft. The Director General engaged newsmen on this current case. We have this report for you now.
The Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency Nimasa has arrested a vessel, MT Green Dolphin, with suspected stolen crude oil within its territorial waters. The Director General of the agency, Mr. Zakade Patrick Akubulukemi, held a press conference on Thursday, 28th of March 2013 to this effect. He stated that the vessel and her crew members have been detained by Nimasa and will be handed over to the EFCC for further investigations and possible prosecution.
MT Dolphin Coast, also known as MT Green Dolphin, is one of the ships we want to hand over to the EFCC. This vessel has been involved in lifting crude from the Niger Delta area, particularly Bonin Light, and the vessel is in our custody. And at this moment we have 6 crew and some contract staff on board. The captain, the chief officer, the chief engineer are all also with us. We are going to do our best within our capacity to make sure that the necessary steps are taken for the vessel and its owners and their accomplices be tried for economic crimes and conviction secured.
He noted that the agency had been monitoring the movement of this vessel until it got enough information that she had stolen crude oil on board.
We started monitoring it until, I think it was last week. Last week we caught it. And we have evidence to show that it took Bonin Lights from the Niger Delta.
The DG also explained that the vessel, MT Green Dolphin, had been arrested in the past and released in December 2012 following a court order. After the release of the vessel, she remained under the surveillance of Nimasa until she was found to be involved in illegal deals along the west coast. Nimasa is a law-abiding agency that believes in due process and is determined to have zero tolerance for oil theft and pirate activities on the nation's waters. The Nimasa boss said that the agency is working hand in hand with the federal government to having a crime-free maritime environment.
Free, peaceful, crime-free maritime environment is one of the greatest desires of this administration that reflects the transformation agenda of Mr. President. The next issue in the maritime sector that is a national issue that affects all of us, from economic perspective, from social perspective, and from environmental perspective is the issue of oil theft. We have zero tolerance for these two problems that we faced for quite some time. And you know, we've taken a lot of steps in reducing these two problems to the various minimum.
He called on the media and individuals to help in the fight against piracy and oil theft, as this crime would only constitute to economic sabotage. ED Maritime Labour and Cabotage, Mr. Nwabweze Kalistisobi, also spoke on Nimasa's role in checking crime on the nation's territorial waters.
We are not prejudging this matter. What we have done is to do that which we are empowered to do. We have arrested this vessel on suspicion, very serious suspicion of theft of crude oil. And as a law-abiding agency, we are doing the needful. We are handing them over to EFCC for detailed investigation and prosecution. And that is the spirit of Nimasa as it relates to crime and criminality in our waters.
At the end of the briefing, the Director General used the opportunity to enlighten the public on the role Nimasa has played so far to the survivors of the recent boat mishap that occurred in March.
The unfortunate boat mishap. In our clinic in Calabar, they got better treatment, and we've given them some money and handed over to immigration for their welfare. The other two that were badly burnt at our run are getting better and are being taken care of by Nimasa.
News of the giant strides and successes at Nimasa is fast gaining currency amongst various groups who have at various times expressed their delight at the agency's efforts. One of such groups is the Niger Delta Young Professionals, who recently paid a courtesy call on the management staff of the agency. Up next is the report on that visit.
The Director General of the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, Nimasa, Mr. Ziakede Patrick Akpobulekemi, Executive Directors and other senior management staff of the agency played host to a delegation of Niger Delta Young Professionals at the head office of the agency on Friday, 22nd of March 2013. The delegation of young professionals included a good number of accomplished young men and women who introduced themselves. 3 members of the executive management of Nimasa also took turns to welcome the delegation.
I want to welcome you very profoundly to Nimasa. You're most welcome. My name is Barrister Nwabweze B. I'm the Executive Director of Maritime Labour and Cabotage Services.
My name is Executive Director of Maritime Safety and Shipping Development.
I'm really encouraged by your presence and really encouraged by this group. Now, if the youth can sit down and talk about development like they're doing, it will gladden our hearts.
The visit by the young professionals was to commend the efforts of the DGCU and present him an award for his contributions towards the transformation agenda of Mr. President in the areas of human capacity development in ensuring that the maritime sector of Nigeria becomes a hub in Africa. President and Chairman of the Niger Delta Young Professionals, Mr. Moses Yasia, spoke on behalf of the group.
We are seen as trustees of prosperity. The future of our zone lies in our hands as young people. So that's why we decided to put on this group so that we can take up the challenges and form a very formidable force to make sure that we add value in the process of growth and development in our region.
Mr. Siasia went further to state that as young professionals, they were totally committed to the education and empowerment of Niger Delta youths to become a formidable force in the development of not only the Niger Delta region, but the nation at large. It is for these reasons the group chose the DG Nimasa to be the beneficiary of this outstanding award, because they found in him a worthy role model for the youths of Nigeria. After the presentation of the Award of Excellence to the Nimasa helmsman, Siasia enjoined the DG not to relent in his efforts at ensuring the desired growth and development of the maritime sector, which is the gateway to the economic progress.
I want to assure you that all these things that we have been doing in terms of empowering our young people and also giving them a purposeful and a sustainable future, we as young people will continue to respect and honor you in whatever measure we can.
The DG Nimasa, humbled by the honor bestowed on him and by extension the agency, was quick to respond to the Niger Delta professionals and thank them for the award and recognition.
I'm quite humbled by this demonstration of love and respect for my person and for this agency. Many of you here know me, that I am from a very simple background, came through struggling parents, was not born with silver spoons.
Mr. Ziakede went ahead to attribute the restiveness among the Nigerian youths to the increasing rate of unemployment in the country. He then encouraged the private sector to take up the challenge of unemployment through initiating entrepreneurial training for the youths, while the government creates an enabling environment. While also speaking in the area of the falling standards of the educational curriculum in tertiary institutions, the CEO enjoined the National University Commission (NUC) and the National Board of Technical Education (MBTE) to look into the implementing standards of the curricula, especially in the areas of entrepreneurial studies, in order for the youths to be empowered as well as to create jobs instead of seeking jobs.
That is also part of our development programs for the youth. The essence is to get these youths out of drugs, out of crime, so that they can contribute meaningfully for the development of our great nation, Nigeria. In terms of other forms of economic empowerment, we consider youth, young persons, for empowerment programs, for small jobs, at least to make life meaningful for them, and that we'll continue to do. We have community relations programs, we have corporate social responsibility issues for the benefit particularly of young persons. And we are quite happy that things are getting better and better for us in Nimasa, and of course ultimately for the maritime sector, that we are the leading regulators. So your coming here is a reaffirmation for us to consolidate on the gains that have been made, for us to be propelled into taking more actions, further actions that will increase youth empowerment, youth productivity, in order to bring about peace in our area.
As he advised the young professionals to go back to dissuade the youths against criminal activities, which he said can only destroy them and diminish the economic growth in the country. He reiterated the commitment of Nimasa as a government agency to see the growth of the economy through human capacity development in the maritime sector, in order to increase the participation of Nigerians in the sector, and also assured the group of the agency's preparedness to partner with any person or group for the purpose of youth development for economic empowerment. The high point of the visit was when a well-known member of the delegation, Timi Dakolo, a leading recording artist, stood up to render an uplifting song to the delight of all gathered.
You and I must make a pact. We must bring salvation back. Where there is love, then I'll be there, and I'll have faith in all you do. To just call my name, and I'll be there.
that is our show for this week. As always, we hope we kept you informed and educated. Now, please don't forget, Nimasa This Week is an interactive show. We want to hear your comments, answer your questions, and even some of your criticisms, if that's how you're feeling. All you need to do is to send those comments to the email address currently showing on your screen. Now, I'm going to be here next week, same time, same station. Until then, I'm wishing you smooth sailing and bon voyage.